This is Chad Call, Shared Use Specialist at the Tulsa Health Department in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And our presentation today is Public Health Informed City Planning, Shared Use, and Food Forestry Strategy for Health Equity. Today we're going to focus on increasing physical activity through shared use as one part of this strategy that we've been working on. And so what is shared use? It's agreements for sharing space or resources that can increase physical activity, nutrition, and health equity. Shared use can be informal, formal, or third-party shared use agreements. Informal is where you don't have it in specific writing, but people still allow you to share. Formal, you have more specific writing or signage. And third-party agreements is it's in writing and it's between a group to use the space. And for our work on shared use agreements, it's been with schools in Tulsa County. And when I began working on shared use in Tulsa County with the 4 school districts that we've been working on, one of the first things that we needed to do was kind of identify areas without places to play. Because the whole focus was to open up school playgrounds, areas for play, and we wanted to see where the greatest needs were at. So that required doing a park analysis. It also required doing economic hardship analysis, where you'd look at people's levels of where they fall in the economic hardship index, because that also creates whether they have access or not. And then we did a survey of the school districts, and then also did a physical audit of their school assets. And following the survey and analysis school audits, then we were able to prepare proposals for schools and focus our energies on the areas that didn't have access to parks as much, and kind of prioritize along those lines. And all the while doing this, while we were mapping play deserts, we were also generating a communication tool that we'd be able to use to communicate available physical activity opportunities. And so mapping play deserts or areas where greatest needs are it's one step in identifying where shared use agreements can make the greatest impact. Because of course, if you unlock a school playground that has a really stellar park next to it, probably doesn't make as big an impact as unlocking a school playground and getting a shared use agreement at an area that doesn't have a park. So trying to find those schools that kind of fill in areas where they don't necessarily have a park nearby. And economic hardship, population density, types of recreation amenities available within walking distance, they're all basic criteria to consider. Some play desert mapping that people have done in Canada and elsewhere, some will map walking distance out at a mile, others will do it at a quarter mile. And we didn't want to overestimate the extent of play deserts or underestimate, so we did ours at a half mile. And also, of course, you can do play desert mapping based on types of amenity for certain age groups. Some do it for types of amenities for risky play for teenagers. So there's all kinds of levels and refinement with play desert mapping that you can do. But these that we have listed here are just kind of basic criteria. And the idea of play deserts came through the CDC, and also Kaboom has collaborated on it. The national NRPAs, they've given their input on it. And economic hardship index is one way to capture a lot of the kind of factors that to get a gauge on where a play desert is. And so a shared use agreement is between the city and the school district space, that space is designated for use by the community for recreational purposes, after hours, weekends, and summertime. And it may require liability offsetting from school district to city for school and assets, but not always. And so, as we had done the survey and the audits and everything, we wanted to communicate to the school districts about play deserts in our proposals. So here's an example of doing shared use proposals, where we listed out all the schools that we would like to have designated as shared use, and just kind of highlighted ones that are kind of priority, that need to be available to the community. And sometimes it requires creativity to get an agreement space. Three of the districts work with me pretty well. Actually, all four have worked really well with me, but some are a little bit hesitant at times, and so trying to find other strategies, maybe using some creativity in your proposals for certain types of amenities. So with the Broken Arrow District, they had done these chalk art festivals, and so the idea was to maybe can we designate a chalk art space at a school site, and have that be a designated space, and then maybe the families using that would also use the playgrounds, get physical activity. And I've got meetings next month to discuss 2 school sites for this shared use proposal. And we basically converted our play desert map to places to play map over time, as we got agreement with the school districts about which schools can be, are designated for shared use and can be communicated to the community. Most schools, didn't have any type of shared use signage and things like that, so we needed to have some kind of way to a communication tool both between us and the school districts, as far as updating status of which schools can be available, which ones aren't. But also we needed a way to let people know about it. And so mapping schools available for shared use can be a great marketing tool, both for promoting shared use agreements, and it increases awareness about those places to play. And so our success is that we now have 87 schools in Tulsa County that now have a places to play shared use agreement that it's officially designating their availability for use by the community after school hours. And the Tulsa, we've got 5 additional unlocked schools with 5 additional unlocked schools, and I think more coming on the way. And also some specific shared use programming, coming on the way with certain proposals. And what this has done now is it's stabilized shared use from going from informal to more formal shared use agreement, with this communication in place between the city and the districts for updating status. They're less like the school districts now are less likely to lock a playground at the drop of a hat, because they know that we have this agreement with them and we're communicating to the community about this availability. And so we can have the districts review our places to play agreement quarterly, or however often we feel like we need to make sure it's accurate. But it should help us stabilize shared use for the community and move forward. And so some lessons I've learned in doing this is that utilizing a mixture of informal and formal shared use agreement it helps address liability concerns. We're lucky that lots of the school districts have been willing to form agreements with us without seeking additional liability offsets. They haven't seemed too afraid of liability, but they like the fact that we can promote shared use through, this marketing tool that's online, and not, overly burden them with a lot of contract language and things like that. And so I think this balance kind of addresses liability concerns in a flexible way. And also the lesson learned is that Play Desert mapping and our places to play shared use marketing tool for negotiating shared use agreements, it's an effective strategy for making progress of increasing access to schools for physical activity. And like I said, I believe it's stabilizing shared use through a much more formal arrangement on a large scale in a pretty fast way than if you were to be working one school at a time and getting one school at a time in writing. So I think it's a pretty good strategy. And also while we were doing it, I've learned that leveraging trees or shade structures can help, you establish a relationship with the school that you're partnering them to protect school assets while increasing their availability. And they have a responsibility to protect school assets, but also a responsibility to make them available. And I had gotten some trees from Upwith Trees, a local nonprofit, and I grew those trees. And then I told the school districts that I've got some trees to help shade playgrounds, so because we're wanting to make them them be more shaded, so people will use them more during the summertime and things like that. And as I've done that, I also applied for a grant for a shade structure. That kind of helps show the school districts that I wasn't just out there trying to get more use out of their properties, that I was also wanting to protect it and help it, and they were seemed to be more willing to work with me. And I've also learned that shared use agreements for pre-K playgrounds and indoor spaces are more difficult to get and may require liability offsets through signed contracts or third-party shared use agreements by finding certain groups that would want to use the space and helping them negotiate the agreements with the school districts. I've met with some people that do have third-party shared use agreements with school districts, and they were looking to try to move schools. Some groups, school districts, they rent their facilities. They've got certain fees for certain things, and that can be a barrier in some areas. And so that's a critical step to getting more use of indoor areas. And some lessons learned. Finally, I think that schools don't always promote shared use, and even though we've got a limited liability of schools, it would be great if there could be incentives for schools to promote shared use more through multiple channels, like signage and like our places to play map, and maybe having informational days where they could invite groups to the schools to see, maybe see some of their assets and different things that are for rent, or that they could get third-party shared use agreements and do different types of shared use programming. I think that kind of promotion could help build awareness by a lot of groups that would maybe want to find a space to do some of the functions that they would like to provide to the community. And so maybe a policy that could kind of require schools to do a little bit more promotion might be a next step in shared use in the future. And I'm kind of looking at maybe getting on the agenda next year and discussing that with the school districts about possibilities and what those incentives would be. And thank you for listening. I think that's